On March 3, 1944, a coal freight train approached the army tunnel near the town of Balvano in Italy. Officially, there were only crew members on board, fewer than 12 people. However, once it emerged from the tunnel, the train would become the cause of more than 500 deaths, making this disaster the deadliest in the history of railroads. In 1944, Italy was in chaos after catastrophic defeats in North Africa and the invasion of Allied forces. In 1943, the country had signed an armistice, but soon found itself under German bombardment. By 1944, Italy was a nation in turmoil. They had entered World War II under the leadership of Benito Mussolini, allied with Nazi Germany. But after a disastrous military campaign in North Africa, the country was overtaken by the Allied forces. In 1943, Italy signed an armistice with the Allies, only to be bombed by Germany soon after. German forces rescued Mussolini and placed him at the head of a puppet state in northern Italy known as the Italian Social Republic, which fought against the Kingdom of Italy in the south for control. In short, by 1944, Italy had become the site of a civil war unfolding in the midst of a world war. Resources across Europe were critically scarce. Public transportation in Italy was prioritized for the military, which deprived civilians of the ability to travel. This forced people to use freight trains illegally as a means of getting around. City residents traveled to rural areas to exchange coffee, cigarettes, and other allied goods for food necessary to keep their families alive. These exchanges and trips became part of what were known as black market routes. Although such actions were illegal, the authorities turned a blind eye, understanding that this practice filled a critical gap in the supply system. By allowing the illegal use of freight trains to continue, officials aimed to maintain peace in the cities and prevent famine among the population. A shortage of coal became one of Italy's key problems at the time. Most trains used coal as fuel, and only very few railway lines were fully electrified. As a result, on many routes, electric engines had to be replaced by steam locomotives, especially when crossing mountainous terrain. Due to the shortage of high-quality coal, train engineers were forced to use whatever supplies were available, including low-grade coal that produced less energy and generated large amounts of poisonous, odorless carbon monoxide. This toxic gas caused a tragedy in February 1944, when the engineer of an American military train lost consciousness from coal fumes inside a tunnel on the Borrogiano-Tito route. He fell between the engine and the tender, which led to his death. However, the incident was classified as an accident, and no measures were taken to prevent similar cases. The Naples-Potenza line became one of the routes known as the Black Market Express. It played a crucial role in transporting people from the cities to rural areas where they engaged in illegal food trading. The line from Naples was electrified, but as the train approached Battipaglia, electric locomotives were replaced by steam engines. These steam engines had to overcome steep sections that required significant power. On March 2, 1944, a train consisting of 45 freight cars departed for Naples. This was Train 8017. In addition to the official cargo, about 500 unofficial passengers climbed aboard, civilians traveling to farms to barter goods. At 7 p.m., the train arrived in Battipaglia, where the steam engine was attached to the front of the train. During this stop, an unknown number of additional passengers also boarded. By the time the train departed, there may have been around 700 unofficial passengers on board. Around midnight, the train reached the Balvano Ricigliano station, where it made a brief stop for maintenance before beginning its climb toward the Armelina tunnel about 50 minutes later. The train reached a maximum speed of about 15 kilometers per hour as it made its way through thick fog toward the tunnel entrance. It was standard practice for the staff at Bellamuro station on the other side of the tunnel to send a signal back to Balvano once a train had passed safely through. But that night, no signal came. It remains unclear why the train stopped in the middle of the winding Armelina Tunnel, which stretches for approximately 1.8 kilometers. The most likely cause of the tragedy was a combination of excessive train weight, low-quality fuel, and unfavorable conditions. The 1.3% gradient and wet rails caused the wheels to slip, despite the use of sandboxes. For unknown reasons, at around 2 in the morning, the train came to a stop inside the tunnel with all but the last 2 cars trapped within it. Before the train even entered the tunnel, it was already filled with smoke left behind by a previous convoy. Poor ventilation only made the situation worse. As the engineers attempted to get the train moving again, more and more carbon monoxide entered the air. The lack of communication between the engineers at the front and rear of the train played a tragic role. When the engineers in the front tried to pull the train uphill, those in the rear mistook the movement for wheel slip and activated the brakes. This only made the situation even worse. At that time of night, many unofficial passengers were asleep, but even those who were awake had no idea how much danger they were in. Carbon monoxide had neither smell nor color. By the time the passengers began to realize that something was wrong, many had already lost consciousness. The first to lose consciousness was the driver at the front of the train. A few passengers managed to get off the train and tried to escape by running back along the tracks, but most of them were poisoned by the carbon monoxide and fell to the side before they could reach fresh air. The brake conductor, Michel Polo, realizing the catastrophe, walked to Balvana Ricciano station around 5 in the morning to call for help. But for hundreds of passengers, it was already too late. The path to the scene of the tragedy was blocked by bodies, and the rescuers could not get closer until they were cleared away. The process took several hours before the tunnel was cleared of gas. The official number of victims was 517, although some reports suggested it could have been 626. The bodies were taken to Balvana Ricciano station and then buried in mass graves at the local cemetery. Only 235 of the deceased were identified, and only the crew members received official burials. Due to military censorship, the tragedy remained unnoticed by the general public. The Allies feared it would undermine civilian morale, while the Italian authorities preferred to distance themselves from the incident. In 951, a parliamentary commission investigated the accident, but by that time, significant evidence was already gone. No one was held accountable for the disaster, which remains one of the deadliest ever to occur. The catastrophe was attributed to the use of low-quality coal during the war, when resource control was minimal. The question of fuel quality remained unresolved. Strict censorship and the impoverished conditions of most of the victims, who were among the poorest, limited public outrage. Those who had lost loved ones had no choice but to focus on their own struggle for survival. Officially, the deceased were classified as war victims. In a way, this was true, although they did not die as a result of bombings or combat, but due to the chaos and collapse of normal life that often occurs when citizens of a warring country struggle simply to survive. That's all from me. Thank you for watching. Support the video with a like and subscribe to the channel. Take care of yourselves and see you next time.